As you gaze across the shimmering horizon of the desert, a gunslinger emerges, embodying the tight-lipped, cigar-chewing sharpshooter reminiscent of Hang 'em High, or perhaps one of the enigmatic characters from Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy. On paper, High Plains Drifter certainly reads like your quintessential Clint Eastwood Western, telling the story of a mysterious and exceptionally skilled outsider hired to protect a seemingly idyllic Californian mining town from outlaws. This premise was standard fare for Eastwood in the early 1970s. However, the film, which is only the second directed by Eastwood, deviates significantly from the norm. High Plains Drifter is a darkly comedic film, created at a time when Eastwood was still viewed largely as a conservative icon with a gun. The movie delves into deeply spiritual themes, particularly the corrosive power of violence. Written by Ernest Tidyman and produced by Robert Daly for Clint Eastwood's Malpaiso Company and Universal Pictures, the film was released in 1973 and bears significant influences from Eastwood's key collaborators, Sergio Leone and Don Siegel. In addition to Eastwood, the cast includes Verna Bloom, Mariana Hill, Mitchell Ryan, Jack Ging, and Stefan Gierasch. Filming took place on location along the shores of Mono Lake, California, with D. Barton composing the film's score. Universal Pictures had initially wanted the film shot on a studio lot, but Eastwood insisted on constructing an entire town in the desert, near Mono Lake in the California Sierras. The buildings were three-dimensional rather than mere facades, enabling interior scenes to be shot on location. Eastwood personally scouted the locations, driving a pickup truck through Oregon, Nevada, and California, ultimately choosing the shores of Mono Lake for their photogenic quality. Additional scenes were filmed in Reno, Nevada, and California's Inyo National Forest. The town of Lago, situated 300 miles from Hollywood, was built by a 46-man crew of technicians and laborers who worked 10-hour days for 18 consecutive days, constructing 14 houses and a 2-story hotel. After filming, the entire set was burned down. Editing took place in a log cabin near Mono Lake, close to where the town was constructed. The unique colors used in the film made the town of Lago appear different throughout the day. This effect was enhanced by eerie music and strange dream sequences, contributing to the movie's supernatural atmosphere. An interesting aspect of the filming process was that Eastwood shot everything in sequence, a rare practice in Hollywood. It takes about 7 minutes into the film before Eastwood's character utters a word of dialogue, despite being present from the first frame. The character Eastwood portrays, known only as the Stranger, bears a striking resemblance to the man with no name from his spaghetti westerns, even wearing a similar hat. The Stranger has no personal name and is listed in the credits simply as The Stranger. Any plot holes were filled with dark humor, an homage to Sergio Leone. Eastwood saw the film's allegory as a speculation on what happens when the town kills the sheriff and someone returns to confront the town's conscience. The message is clear: there is always retribution for your actions. In one of the film's notable scenes, a Bible verse from Isaiah 53:3-4 is seen on the church wall, which reads, "He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted." The character of Marshal Jim Duncan, who is whipped to death in the middle of the town, is played by stuntman Buddy Van Horn, a longtime stunt coordinator for Eastwood. His face was used to create ambiguity about whether he was a different person or the stranger who had ridden into town. In a 1994 interview at the Actors Studio, Eastwood mentioned that earlier versions of the script made the stranger the dead marshal's brother. However, Eastwood preferred a less explicit and more supernatural interpretation of the character. An alternate ending would have seen the stranger, after riding away into the desert and bidding farewell to Mordecai, appear confused and suffering from memory loss, unable to remember arriving or leaving Lago, and riding off to unknown destinations. This ending would have suggested that the stranger had been possessed by the ghost of Marshal Jim Duncan, who, having avenged his death, could now rest in peace. Interestingly, one of the headstones in the graveyard bears the name Sergio Leone as a tribute to the great director. Other headstones include the names of Don Siegel, who directed 5 films starring Eastwood, and Brian Hutton, director of Where Eagles Dare and Kelly's Heroes. Eastwood is quoted as saying he likes to bury his directors. High Plains Drifter was a controversial film for its time, and it's easy to see why. It is a revisionist Western that breaks from the traditional cues and standards of the genre. One of the most shocking elements is a rape scene involving Eastwood, yet despite, or perhaps because of, its provocative content, the film was a significant commercial success and is listed in the Motion Picture Guide as one of the best Westerns of the 1970s. Some critics were harsh on Eastwood's direction, accusing him of imitating Don Siegel and Sergio Leone too closely. However, Eastwood saw this as learning from the best, a sentiment I agree with. There's nothing wrong with emulating those you admire. The film ranks as the 11th highest-grossing Western of the 1970s. The production details are also fascinating. The town was painted with 380 gallons of paint, despite the film depicting the stranger asking for only 200 gallons. In actuality, they used 150,000 feet of timber to build the town of Lago, which translates to lake in Spanish. Most of the film was shot during the day, with only 3 sections filmed at night. Eastwood appears in the final 4 minutes of the film, but is largely absent from much of its climax. After the film's release, Eastwood wrote to John Wayne, proposing they make a Western together. Wayne's response was a very angry letter in which he denounced the film for its violence and revisionist portrayal of the Old West. Eastwood did not respond to Wayne's criticisms, and they never worked together. Wayne disliked the style of the film, where the bad guy becomes a good guy but remains a bad guy at heart. These revisionist Westerns contained a lot of gray areas, unlike Wayne's traditional Westerns, which were straightforward and morally clear-cut. I must say, I thoroughly enjoy this movie. It is a well-crafted film, especially considering it was only Eastwood's second effort as a director. He did an amazing job with it. The film is somewhat dark, but it is still an enjoyable watch, showcasing Eastwood's ability to push the boundaries of the Western genre while delivering a compelling and thought-provoking narrative. Here we end. Thank you for your attention. Like and subscribe. There are many interesting things ahead. Good luck.